All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're looking at a massive collision. I'm talking about the messy, totally unpredictable reality of human life crashing straight into the cold, unbending binary logic of a computer processor. This friction is basically at the core of our modern world, right? We really have to ask ourselves, how on earth do we translate the living, breathing rules of our society into exact, executable code without completely losing our humanity in the process? And that brings us to the core question of our journey today. Because look, you simply cannot treat a piece of human law like a perfectly isolated math equation. It just doesn't work. When we try to force highly contextual human behavior into strict digital boundaries, like say an automated smart contract, those two totally alien universes just crash into each other, leaving us to wonder, can a perfect rule actually survive human reality? To truly wrap our heads around this challenge, we first need to understand the modality gap. This is the absolute chasm separating our purposeful, context-dependent thought from a computer's strict literalism. We humans, we think in nuance, emotion, and past experiences. But a computer? Its arithmetic logic unit operates strictly on voltages and logic gates. It literally only does exactly what it's told to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Notice the stark contrast here. Human law is what we call wet code. It's inherently ambiguous, highly relational, and, well, very forgiving, mostly because we are forgiving. We bend the rules when it makes sense to. But machine language, that's dry code. It operates on pure Boolean logic. It is entirely deterministic and completely cold. If a condition isn't met perfectly, it absolutely does not care if you hit bad traffic or just had a terrible day. The code simply won't execute. Now, for decades, technologists looked at that dry code and saw absolute perfection. Back in the 1990s, cryptographer Nick Szabo illustrated this formalist dream using something we all know, a simple vending machine. It's kind of the ultimate primitive smart contract. You put your dollar in, the machine sees the condition is met, and boom, a soda pops out. No judge, no deliberation, zero human judgment required. Just pure, frictionless execution. But, as history repeatedly shows us, extreme systemic rigidity almost always triggers a huge backlash. Pure digital formalism shatters when it hits the real world. Why? Well, because laws are human speech acts. In landmark precedents, courts will actively override strict technical wording to protect everyday people. They will look completely past whatever clever labels coders slap onto an agreement and prioritize the actual economic substance. Our system absolutely demands human adaptability. And this brilliantly illustrates the danger of pure automation. As tech scholar Madeline Claire Illish points out, if we rely entirely on complex, probabilistic AI to execute our rules without precise control, the human user simply becomes a moral crumple zone. It's just like how the front of a car is designed to crush on impact to protect the cabin. Developers use human operators to absorb the legal liability, to basically take the fall when the algorithm inevitably fails or hallucinates. So let's move into Section 1, Extracting Deontic Logic, formalizing rules without losing humanity. How do we actively avoid becoming those moral crumple zones? Enter the rules as code, or RAC movements. This is a massive paradigm shift. It realizes that we actually don't need to encode abstract legal philosophy or heavy theoretical debates into a machine. We don't need to somehow teach an AI what justice is. Instead, we just need to extract the explicit, functional, logical structure that is already written right there on the face of the text. Legislative drafters achieve this incredible clarity by relying on deontic logic. This system maps our messy legal norms into three incredibly simple modular blocks. Obligation, which means someone must do something. Prohibition, meaning they must not. And permission, meaning they may. You can really think of these as logical Lego blocks. By strictly restricting our terms to these precise expressions, we cleanly bypass the complex, swirling ambiguities that usually trip up automated reasoning systems. It allows us to seamlessly build a mathematically predictable baseline straight out of human language, giving the computer exactly the kind of deterministic commands it needs to function safely. Which brings us to Section 2, the engine, the Accord project pipeline. Let's see how this actually builds mechanically. Understanding this architecture is kind of the ultimate aha moment for legal tech. To see it in action, we're looking at a robust open-source framework called the Accord project. It uses a triad, a highly efficient assembly line, made up of three distinct yet totally intertwined modules: Cicero, Concerto, and Ergo. Together, they process human agreements with absolute deterministic safety. First up in the triad is Cicero. This module manages the lightweight, natural language text. This is the part a human can actually read, understand, and negotiate. But it's secretly powerful, right? Because it dynamically binds variable tags directly to a rigid background structure, ensuring those human words are firmly tethered to hard data points. Second is Concerto. This is that rigid background structure. It manages the strongly typed data schema sitting right underneath the text. This mathematical foundation guarantees that if an AI agent is interacting with the contract, it literally cannot mistake a decimal number for a calendar date. It perfectly locks in the structure. And finally, we have Ergo. Ergo provides the domain-specific language, or DSL. This is the uncompromising mathematical logic that executes the actual rules, the musts, must-nots, and mays we talked about, based on the secure data fed through those Cicero tags. It's really the uncompromising brain of the whole operation. When you put it all together, you are literally watching messy human text get systematically funneled through an uncompromising pipeline. It starts as standard common mark syntax, grabs variables in Cicero mark, binds to JSON logic in template mark, and finally resolves into agreement mark, a fully executable, computationally verified digital agreement. It is just a flawless translation. Moving right along to Section 3, Bridging Intent and Execution, the Sovereign Gate. Now that we have the mechanics, let's look at the ultimate societal impact of firmly binding our human-readable text to these schemas. This pipeline successfully builds what researchers call the semiotic bridge. Structured text acts as the exact deterministic interface. And it's truly wild to think about. This is quite literally the only safe way to compile our boundless associative human imagination directly into the physical, electrical execution of a silicon processor. By strictly defining these explicit relationships, the Accord pipeline acts as a sovereign gate. Look, in an era where AI chatbots are constantly generating approximations and guesses, this highly structured text asserts absolute human intent. It strictly bounds the error space, keeping unpredictable, lossy algorithms from making dangerous legal guesses with your life. And this brilliantly illustrates why, even with all this incredible automation, the human pilot remains absolutely irreplaceable. We are the ultimate theological stewards of the machine. The machine? It simply executes the sweat. But we provide the moral mandate, we author the exact constraints, and most importantly, we hold the ultimate legal liability when we pull the trigger. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder the next time you hear someone claim that code is law. As we rush to formalize our society using these amazing tools, we have to remember that pure formalization is always incomplete. Because if we completely remove the human author, who takes the fall when the code inevitably breaks reality? Are we genuinely willing to trade the living, breathing context of human justice for the cold certainty of a digital vending machine? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems around you.